Welcome to Oracle Health Conference.
Is he alive? Is he alive now? We didn't think he would make it. Tristan and I met in the summer of 2014. We both lived in New York City.
Asked you out on a date. It was at a tea parlor. We had a wonderful time together.
Yeah, we had no chill. We named our children on the first date and never really looked back. It was exciting to watch all of the plans that we had made come to fruition. We got married, we got the dog, we're moving back to Kansas City where my family's from. We want to have a baby, we got pregnant. You wanted this dream job, and then you got it. And that literally was the day that our lives were turned upside down.
I remember a lot of the pain. Even just sitting felt like I was being active, and so I knew that something was wrong. I walked into the ER. There's one nurse, and suddenly there's a gentleman who came in. He said, "Your heart's failed. We don't have much time. We're going to put you on life support. Do you understand?" That was the last memory that I had.
When he came in, we quickly realized his kidneys were starting to fail, his liver was starting to fail. It was still kind of a surreal time because there was still so much unknown.
It had been an hour, and then 2 hours, and then 3 hours. I still hadn't heard anything. And I got the call that you never really want to get. I remember walking into the ICU. It was dark, it was quiet. And I remember walking up and they said, "This is the wife, this is the wife." They said, "We will tell you what's going on with him, but we need some information from you first. What's his height? What's his weight? What medicines is he on? Does he have allergies? Can you tell us his medical history? Has he had surgeries recently?" And I was in shock, and I was trying not to miss a single detail, because what if that's the thing that's going to be the problem? They asked me to consider what a heart transplant future might look like. They handed me a binder. They said I had an hour to read it, and then I had to start making some decisions. And I remember thinking, is this the decision that Tristan would want me to make? Tristan's the person that I told all of my dreams to and that we planned together, and I was doing this on my own. I had not slept in about 40 hours. Reminder, I was 3 months pregnant, and I was terrified. I signed off on your heart transplant, and you got a match that night. And then the heart wasn't the right match because the height and weight were entered incorrectly. The donor was not the height that we thought the donor was. And as if by a miracle, another heart became available that they referred to as a unicorn heart.
It took another week for me to actually wake up. There was a nurse in the room who was actually the one who said, "You had a heart transplant." I couldn't speak. Our only way to communicate was really squeezing hands. When I was discharged, I spent another 7 months going through rehab and recovery. And then as a result of my transplant meds, my bones are now starting to fall apart in certain areas. And so I have hip replacements that are happening on both sides, and been in the ICU 3 times since I was discharged. When you have that experience, I'll tell you, everything else in life suddenly doesn't matter. There's an immense amount of gratitude that goes into knowing that I've met my son and he has a father because of my donor's gift. And it's beautiful and remarkable and tragic all at the same time. But so when you look at this, there's a profound opportunity for modernization and technology and collaboration in the space.
Please welcome to the stage, Travis Dalton.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. At least once in your life, you should get your name called out like that. It's awesome. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning to some of you. I say that because we have folks from all over the world here. Thanks for your time today. We're really grateful for it. I had a chance to meet with our global clients this morning, and we had some folks that flew over 25 hours to be here. So thanks for doing that. I hope you're still awake. but we really appreciate the time and energy to be here. It means a lot to us. I'm Travis, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to the first ever Oracle Health Conference. That's pretty cool to be a part of the first. It's okay to clap, actually. We really appreciate it. So, I have to say that some of us, we did this 31 years or so in Kansas City, may miss Kansas City. But it's okay because the Chiefs are still going to win the Super Bowl this year. We all know that. So that's definitely going to happen. We're in Las Vegas, so it's good. And I also will say for our international friends who don't think American football is the real football, Barcelona is going to win the Champions League in 24. There's no doubt in my mind. So thank you for being here. We've got a lot to do. So I'm going to be quick. Today, my colleagues and I are going to walk you through how Oracle is really moving beyond the EHR to connect the entirety of the healthcare ecosystem. And to close out, Mike Sicilia will share an exciting announcement and highlight some of the key innovations that we've been working on. First, I did want to say thank you to Tristan and Jordan. I had the chance to meet them backstage for sharing that powerful story. You'll hear more from them, but it takes a lot of courage to do that. And I really appreciate them, and so thank you, Tristan and Jordan. I'll just say, as a husband and a father, I was very touched by their story, and we're all blessed, and I'm always reminded that healthcare is personal. If you remember last year, this is my daughter, this is the picture I showed last year. This year, there she is, that's Camilla. So time goes quickly. Thanks for that clap, by the way. Time goes quickly. I will mention just quickly, I do have 2 sons as well, but my daughter's much cuter, so that's the picture that we use. But it is a reminder that what we do is important and it's personal and it matters, so thank you for what you do. Healthcare is also complex, so consumer demands are rapidly changing. Workforce and asset demands are increasing. Operating expenses are growing, and provider burnout is real. The work you have to do is challenging, and we're here to support you. Healthcare is at an inflection point. I think it's more ready for change, data and technology-driven change than any point in my 22 years. And hopefully the panelists will say the same. We have work to do. We know that. The good news is that as Oracle, we now have the scale, the breadth, and the talent to enable your strategic needs. We're using the Oracle Cloud to deliver faster, better, more secure, while reducing operating cost environments. We're improving the user experience with better workflow and solution design. You're going to hear that and you're going to see that today from when Mike comes out and goes through some of those elements. We're bringing real AI and innovation to the market now. And as I mentioned, we will be showing AI, and Mike will be doing that with David as well. And you will hear and see all of that this week. We recognize you have material investments. We know that. You've made a bet on us. We made a bet on you. What I want to do is talk about maximizing that investment. There's no one better to do that than our clients. That's who you're really here to hear from. I had the chance to visit these 3 folks personally and was literally blown away by the work that they're doing and the way that they're using the system today, the investments they already made, to improve the user experience, operate with command, and advance the ecosystem. So it's my pleasure to welcome His Excellency Dr. Majid Al-Fayad, CEO of King Faisal Specialist Hospital and Research Center. Sarah Downey, President and CEO of Center for Addiction and Mental Health. And Eduardo Conrado, President of Ascension. So thank you all for being here with us today. We really appreciate it. So Sarah, I'll start with you. So I've been open. It was my pleasure to come see you that my brother, and I have his full consent to say this, he suffers from paranoid schizophrenia, and I've been his caregiver for the last 10 years, and it's been a journey for us. And I was really excited to come see the work that you do because I know about the passion and compassion of your team, and I was blown away. And so I think oftentimes we think of care, we think about physical, but can you share with us how you look at the state of health?
Well, thank you, Travis, and thank you for coming to Toronto and sharing your story with us. CAMH is Canada's largest mental health and addictions teaching hospital and a world-leading center for research. When it opened in 1850, it was called the Ontario Lunatic Asylum. We're now a modern facility, a campus of care with city streets that run through this urban village with families and dogs and children walking through it. There is, in fact, a 500-bed mental health hospital in the middle of one of Canada's most chic neighborhoods. And the photo on the screen, I think it's there, is of an adjoining building to our property with a message they put on for us, and that's that you've changed. And at the bottom of that picture, you see a wall, and that wall was actually built by patients of the asylum in 1860 to keep onlookers away and to keep society protected from them. And in spite of this great progress, there's more work to be done. And I work at CAMH because I think mental illness is the most important health issue of our lifetime. The statistics are staggering. 1 in 5 people will suffer from a mental illness in any given year, and 70% of mental illness is diagnosable before adulthood. In post-pandemic surveys of young people show an incredible increase in anxiety, symptoms of depression, eating disorders, and drug use. In fact, a recent high school survey of Ontario students, 59% of young people feel depressed about their future, and vaping rates have doubled in the past 2 years. And if living with a mental illness weren't hard enough, people with serious mental illness will die 10 to 25 years earlier than the general population because we don't manage and understand their physical health conditions and chronic issues like cancer, diabetes, asthma, etc. So CAMH is committed to breaking down the stigma that people with mental illness face. We fundamentally believe that mental health is health, and it takes a movement to move the dial. And we work with companies like Oracle Health and with people like you, Travis, who care deeply about helping us achieve our vision. And we've been a proud partner of Cerner, now Oracle Health, for 10 years with common sights set on improving care for those who need it most. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, thanks for the work that you're doing. I think it's really amazing, and we really appreciate it. I was inspired by that wall. We took a photo in front of it, and it was moving for me. We heard Tristan's story. Everyone, I'm sure, was moved by that. And what touched me was his wife having to recall her husband's record during the worst moment, likely, of her life. Not only can technology improve the patient experience, but it can also help caregivers. Eduardo, Ascension was an early adopter of our seamless exchange product that pulls in outside records from trusted sources. Can you share with us the results that you've seen to date and how this will improve the person's experience?
Sure, Travis. We've been working with your team for the last couple of years in seamless exchange. And just to put it in the context in terms of the importance of data at Ascension, we have over 60 million patient visits into our medical group. We have over 3 million visits into our ED annually, and we perform about 600,000 surgeries per year across our 130 plus hospitals in the US on it. So data is important, and while Cerner has the largest footprint of EHR within Ascension, we also have other EHRs, and we have to interact with outside providers on it. So we've been working on seamless exchange in terms of our doctors having access to their patients' data when they visit the emergency room or other doctors within the community. Conversely, the same thing within the ED. So if any of the patients visit the ED, we want to be able to access all that data on that. If they have to go get surgery, the surgeons want to be able to access their medical records, not only from the ambulatory side, but also from other doctors in the community. And once the surgery is over, kind of having the ability to do post-discharge information flowing back into the ambulatory side. So we've been working with Cerner on kind of doing that exchange seamlessly, making the data readily available for the providers. And easy format to be able to kind of interface and access. So I would say 2 years into the project, great progress so far.
Yeah, we appreciate your team. I think they're seated over here for the leadership in that. It's really a critical breakthrough, I think, for all of us. So thank you for leading that. When we talk about partnership and expanding capabilities of technology today, King Faisal Specialist Hospital, I think, is a great example and comes to my mind. Dr. Majid, I came to see you earlier in the year. We've been working together for over 20 years, our organizations. It's been an incredible relationship that we're really proud that you're our client. And I was incredibly blown away by the innovation and the reimagination of the command center. I think everyone could benefit from hearing about that. So if you could tell us a little bit about your operational efficiency and why that's a priority for you, I'd really appreciate it.
Thank you, Travis. Indeed, it has been 20 years. Exciting 20 years, full of successes and not short in challenges, and we look for more years to come with successes. As you have seen, King Faisal Specialist Hospital is a digitally driven hospital, which means we have lots of data generated every day going through our system. And for years, we have relied on reports that tells us what happened yesterday. And then we moved on to dashboards, real-time dashboards that tells us what's happened at the time. But that wasn't enough for us. We wanted to, we wanted to manage the future instead of reacting to the past. We wanted to predict demand and based on that, adjust our supply. So the answer to that equation was our patient flow command and control center, which we opened last year with your help, with the data that we generate through the collaboration and our work together. So you see the command control center, the patient flow, it looks at all the different data points from all the systems that generated to one point where this data is analyzed using continuous intelligence to analyze the data, not only describe, but predict and prescribe to the decision maker, enable them to make the right decisions. And we have generated many solutions to help us change things on the ground to the better of the patients and efficiency. One example I may mention here is our turnaround time on beds. So by any definition, 27 hours turnaround from the patient discharge to the next patient coming in is inefficient. And many initiatives were started by our nursing, our admission office, our case manager to reduce that time. But the problem is that they were looking at a lens with specific solutions. It wasn't until we were able to gather all the data in one place and somebody staring at the problem from all its dimensions through all the lenses, we were able to identify where we should focus our effort. And with that, the turnaround time was dropped from 27 hours to 6 hours. Now, what does that mean? It means in a hospital of 1,800 beds of a complex tertiary care like our hospital, it means 6 extra patient days per day and translate to 180 patients admissions per month. Those patients we were not able to see them before. Now we're able to do it with the help of this technology. And this is just scratching the surface. There are other applications. We are still in the upslope learning of how to use the data and the intelligence, the continuous intelligence we apply on those to be able to improve our efficiency. And I'm so happy that I'm given this opportunity to showcase our success. And I thank you for the invitation to basically showcase our success in the command control center. And I'll invite you again. You'll see more applications and any of our audience to come and visit in person or virtually, because it is a growing process, a learning process. We will learn from your suggestions and from your experience as well.
Yeah, I'll be back because the food was delicious when we were there. And I really was impressed by the prediction, the forecasting. So find Dr. Majid on break and ask more about that. CAMH is another example of a client who's taken the system that you have today and really, I think, done a lot with it to make transformative change. You focused on clinician burnout and using analytics. So Sarah, could you share with us what you've been doing and the results that you've seen?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm sure that the health human resources struggles and availability of people is of concern to everybody in this audience. And addressing the burden of the electronic health of the EHR systems is essential to improving their job satisfaction. So at CAMH, over 30% of our clinicians report symptoms of burnout. While not all this is related to computers, we're all aware of their struggles with electronic systems. One example is we're using Oracle Health's Lights On tool to understand how and when clinicians are using the EHR. And by looking at metrics such as how much time clinicians spend documenting and putting in orders after their shifts, also known as pajama time, we've taken an informed approach to streamlining workflow and increasing efficiency. So one concrete example of improvement involves CAMH nurses. And the functional monitoring tool is one of the many forms being completed daily to document against the patient's care plan. And after collecting feedback from frontline staff and reviewing the data in Lights On, we found that nurses were spending a lot of time completing unnecessary and redundant fields. So we worked with them to redesign and simplify the form. And the result of that is that we've saved 1,700 hours a year in nursing documentation time, and we can reinvest nearly an FTE into the time that matters most to everybody, which is care for patients. But I should add that these data-driven solutions have been happening in the context of a larger clinical engagement strategy. Our rule at CAMH is that any change in the electronic health record will be approved by clinicians. So they are the drivers of the evolution of these important tools and aren't just passengers along for the ride. This strategy has involved initiating an academic program where we study burnout and how to address it. We've published on it. We have multidisciplinary SWAT teams who go out and interact regularly on the front lines with clinical staff. And we brought technologies in to decrease the documentation burden. And now, with artificial intelligence revolution that is here, we're testing AI algorithms and decision support tools that make clinical care and patient outcomes even better. So this approach to owning and adapting our EHR, not just your EHR, but it's ours, has created a positive change in the relationship between our hospital and our clinicians, resulting in levels of engagement that we're really proud of.
Yeah, and I love how you're using the data from Lights On. I think it's an underutilized tool. So it's really impressive how you're doing that. All the innovation we talked about is ultimately designed to deliver care and outcomes. Dr. Majid, can you share how you're thinking about improving the patient experience via Command Center or other tools that you're using?
Yes, I'll tell you a story. We've struggled in our report from Press Ganey in patient experience in the percentage of patients who receive discharge instructions. So we have a patient education service. So one day, a young patient education specialist comes to my office and said, listen, we cannot fix this. We've been educating nurses, we've been talking to physicians, and we've been talking to patients and giving them instruction. Yet, after discharge, Press Ganey calls them and said, no, we didn't have any patient education. I don't know what to do. So I have to say, I didn't have any bright solutions either. But she actually went to the command control center, and she took a corner and observed the discharged patients, those who say we did not receive discharge instruction. And it turns out that they were handed a piece of paper at the day of discharge. But it turns out that there are patterns that was recognized from the command control center that we have started, and she was able to spot those. Who is the nurse? What service? What kind of surgery? Who is the patient? What's their level of education? A lot of information that she was able to, with her team, to target the education to patients who are potentially not going to understand or pay attention at the discharge instruction at the day of discharge, and start the discharge process from the day of admission rather than the day of discharge. And based on that, I just looked at the Press Ganey report just before taking my 25-hour flight from Riyadh.
Thank you.
And in January, 46% of our patients said that they have received discharge instruction. Last report from Press Ganey, independent source, it's 92. 92%. Thank you. So 92%. So it's about actionable knowledge. The data was there all along. It's just we didn't know where to focus the attention. And with this actionable knowledge, she was able, with her team, to improve in that important indicator, which reflects in patient quality. It reflects less stress in our emergency room. I have to say, when we started the command control, my thinking was, efficiency, more bells and whistles, nice photos, and maybe nice presentation for the CEO. Turns out that it also helped us in many areas like patient experience. We're excited, and we're looking for more applications.
Great, thank you. Thanks for that example, it's impressive. We've heard some exciting examples of how you're working on healthcare today. As we think ahead and set up a little more of the presentation that's coming, the full scale and expertise of Oracle across the clinical and business systems is important for us. Ascension has really been leading this work and on this journey with us as our first healthcare client to really align the clinical and the business systems and in an attempt to unlock value there. Eduardo, can you talk to us a little bit about the vision, why that's important for Ascension, and how you're thinking about the work?
Sure, Travis. So post the pandemic, we felt that we needed to break down the wall between the clinical systems, the EHRs, and the business and financial systems, the ERP. Or PeopleSoft ERP was getting long in the tooth. It was reaching about the 10-year mark, and we had to select a new ERP system. We worked with Oracle in terms of coming up with a plan of migrating to Oracle Fusion and then kind of tying that into Cerner. To address three main issues. One of them is planning, workforce management, and supply chain. And think about it. Every other industry out there other than healthcare on the planning capability, they're able to tie demand to manpower planning, to capacity in the factory, and then to the supply chain to be able to supply parts. We should be able to do the same in healthcare on it. The only way to do that is tying in your ERP to your EHR. Workforce management, another key capability that we need to build in. We have probably about 150,000 employees that are Ascension badge and another 100,000 that are not employed by us by our badge. So think about managing a workforce of 250,000 employees. You got to be able to tie your human capital system to your scheduling system, to your demand planning, and then to your payroll. Again, we feel that tying in your clinical systems to ERP is critical. Supply chain planning, in terms of tying in clinical OR utilization, plus the type of surgeries that we're going to be doing, then defining the type of supplies that we have there, will allow us to run much more efficiently as an organization. So we're going to be the first ones out the door. We're going to be collaborating with the Oracle team in terms of how do we tie the financial and the clinical systems, but I think this will provide an ability for us to differentiate and bend some of the efficiencies and cost curves that we run as a system.
Yeah, thanks, Eduardo. We know you'll challenge us, and that's important work for us, so we're committed to doing it with you. So I'm going to wrap here, but I'd be remiss if I didn't mention, we've got data. We talked about data, so security is top of our mind. And I'll just say that Oracle has decades of experience in securing that data. And so you can feel good that we're focused on that as it relates to data security and applications. I want to say a sincere thank you for doing this. I asked and you agreed, which is, I'm really grateful for that. I'm actually kind of humbled to be up here. I feel like we could do this for hours, but we won't. And we're proud to serve Ascension, CAMH, and King Faisal. And I want you to know that, and we're fully committed to your success, and we'll be there for that. So thank you, Dr. Magid. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Eduardo, and we really appreciate it. Thank you. So we're now going to hear again from Tristan. We'll hear from Tristan and Jordan, so let's watch their video. Thank you.
Last year, there were about 43,000 transplants in the United States. When a patient is listed, they typically go through biopsies. They meet with a number of different doctors and specialists. In that process, it takes typically 3 to 6 months. Once they're listed, their information goes into a database. As donors become available, there's then matches that are automatically performed. where the organ is actually recovered from that donor and then transported to the patient in need. There are more than 100,000 people right now that are waiting for transplant. There's estimates that maybe even 28,000 additional viable organs were ultimately non-utilized, and some of that's due to waste, some of that's due to neglect.
As the family member, as the patient, it's excruciating. You'd only been on the list for less than 24 hours. There are so many families out there that are waiting and waiting and waiting for a call that might never come. And I was devastated over not getting our first choice.
When you look at this, there's a profound opportunity for modernization and technology and collaboration in the space.
I know exactly where my sweater is tomorrow after I bought it today. We should know where everything is, and we should be able to automate as much as possible because the data exists. It just needs to be moving from place to place in the right way.
And what that unlocks is how you can take the technology, the data, and the collaboration to really transform outcomes. What we've seen actually is Transplant working with external stakeholders to say, this is a solvable problem. We can do this together, and if we take best-in-class technology, best-in-class data practices, not only is this getting a sweater to somebody, if you will, but this is actually having a real impact on people's lives.
We know that if we have the right collaboration paired with the right tech, all rowing in the same direction, other people get to have experiences like Tristan where they get to come back.
Please welcome to the stage, Seema Verma.
Well, that is an inspiring story. Before I came to Oracle, I spent my time in government. So 4 years in government trying to solve problems like that. Actually put out a regulation that was supposed to increase the supply of organs. And I also spent my time trying to work on regulations to make data flow better so that patients and doctors had the information they needed when they needed it. But you know, at the end of the day, government regulations only go so far. And you need the private sector to make the vision of the regulations a reality. And that's why I came to Oracle. There are some of the best technologists here, and they are solving some of the biggest problems in healthcare. Oracle has assembled the most unique set of assets that are not only going to solve problems in healthcare, but they're also going to bridge the gap between clinical research and clinical care to speed up innovation so that it doesn't take 17 years to bring a drug to the bedside. And they're also working on improving quality of care. So it makes it easier for patients to navigate the system, to get into a clinical trial, and it makes it easier for doctors to enroll patients or to sponsor a trial. The power of Oracle starts with its high-speed cloud computing. We recently announced a partnership with NVIDIA, and the data is already showing that they are able to accelerate molecular discovery at scale using Oracle technology. We also have innovative and cutting-edge technology that supports clinical trials, from recruitment of patients all the way to post-market studies and safety studies. Now, the Cerner acquisition is a game changer. We now have access to an unprecedented amount of data through our Learning Health Network. And we've brought over 200 researchers to turn that data into meaningful insights that will improve patient outcomes. Collectively, these assets will not only speed up the pace of innovation, but we're also able to connect the last mile that's enabled by the EHR, so we can let doctors know when their patients qualify for a clinical trial. And we can also provide them with the latest research and the outcomes of those clinical trials. And we're always going to be EHR agnostic because we want to work with everyone to bridge the gap between clinical care and clinical research. So today we're going to have a discussion with a couple of wonderful customers that are very innovative, and they're focusing on improving quality of care and also advancing clinical discovery. So please welcome Chris Boone, the VP Global Head of Health Economics and Outcomes Research at AbbVie, and also Michelle Keefe, the CEO of Syneos Health. So thanks to both of you for being with us today. So Michelle, we just announced a partnership. Tell us a little bit more about Syneos and also the partnership.
Sure. So Syneos Health is an integrated biopharmaceutical solutions company. So we're proud to work with our life sciences partners to deliver research on their behalf, as well as, bring products to market and ensure that we've partnered with those customers to get the data into the market that allows us to have commercial success and get those assets into the patients that really needed those products into their hands. And so we are fueled by multiple things, right? We're a solutions organization, so we're fueled by our people, we're fueled by our scientific expertise, but I'm not telling anybody in this audience anything they don't already know, which is using technology to speed clinical trials and getting the right patients in clinical trials so that we can get these medications to market quicker is critical. And that's why we're really excited about this opportunity to work with Oracle to think about how we could do that more effectively.
So one of your biggest challenges is trying to find patients that actually want to participate in the clinical trial, and that's a big challenge. So one of the things that we're doing with the Learning Health Network, it's 100 million patients. That's something that we're going to be growing, hopefully worldwide as well. And it allows our partners like Syneos to use that data to identify potential patients. And we're also able to not only identify them, but also help with the recruitment, because we can put an alert in the EHR that tells the doctor, hey, this patient is potentially eligible for a clinical trial. So tell me about some of the other things that you're doing and the challenges that you're facing around clinical trial recruitment.
So we have been very focused on really thinking through how we find the right patients. I mean, when you think about a clinical trial, you have so many stakeholders, right? You have the sites, you have the patients, you have the caregivers. And we've really been trying to think holistically about how do you create those connections in a much more meaningful way, and in a way that just doesn't allow you to find the patients or select the right sites, but making sure the patient makes it all the way through the process. And then we make it easier for sites to be able to deliver clinical trials for our sponsors, right? And so the more we have kind of dissected where we see those points of friction in the system, we realize that technology solutions will allow us to do that, right? Because it's all about insights, right? Insights around how do you enable a site to have a minimum amount of data they have to collect, and how do you use technology to do that? How do you make sure that patients are aware of the clinical trials, and not just be aware of them, but be motivated to join them and speak to them in a way that allows them to understand what it's actually going to be like for the journey. Because I think there is the shroud of unknown around what it actually means to be part of a clinical trial, and it's a commitment, right? And so how do you make it easier for them to understand that journey?
Right. So Chris, you and I have had a lot of conversations about data, and so once we even get a patient into the clinical trial, then it's analyzing that data, looking at all kinds of other data resources to have those insights to further the innovation. So tell us a little bit more about AbbVie and some of the challenges that you've had around data and what you're doing to solve those.
Yeah, I think the big thing that people should understand is that you probably don't know much about AbbVie, but AbbVie was founded in 2013. It was a spin out of Abbott Labs in Chicago. And we're now a top 5 global biopharmaceutical company. I think that as it pertains to the clinical trials, the single greatest issue that we have is clinical trial recruitment. I would say retention is an issue too. But if you look at what's contributing to most of the trial delays and trial completion, it's the ability to recruit, and now recruiting diverse populations. The way that we try to, the framework that we use is to create a patient-centric approach, which involves engaging with patient communities, patient advocacy groups, provider groups, so on and so forth, with the spirit of trying to create a feel or that addresses the needs and preferences of many of the patients that are involved in it. We actually utilize data to design many of our studies, to identify where many of these eligible patients may be, to identify sites where these patients actually live. I mean, historically, we've used academic medical centers mostly to do many of our trials, and now we see a shift towards using more community-based providers in order to do many of the trials. And I think that that's going to be the new reality as we move forward.
What about the back end, Chris, right? So that's the clinical trial recruitment, but you also spent a lot of time on studies with real world data, real world evidence. Tell us about that and the challenges that you're facing and some of the work that we've been talking about doing with you.
You know, I mean, when I started this years ago, people thought that they treated real world data, real world evidence as though it was voodoo science is what they called it. So there was a credibility issue with proving that real world evidence could be effectively used for regulatory decision making or for any sort of decisions that were useful. And then there was this sort of tension between the use of RCTs versus RWE for any sort of clinical decision making. I think what we found is that they both are complementary. We can certainly use real-world evidence for long-term follow-up to really determine treatment effectiveness and outcomes of many of the patients that participate in the trials. But also, as the world shifts to more of this precision medicine world, it's important to identify those subpopulations that are really benefiting from therapies and those that are not. So it truly becomes an issue of treatment effectiveness and treatment safety.
Right. So when I was a regulator, one of my jobs was to make coverage decisions for the country. Will we cover this? And I think one of the mysteries or people didn't quite understand is they thought, well, if it was approved by the FDA and the FDA said it was safe and effective, then automatically CMS was going to pay for it. And that's not always the case. CMS wanted to see data that it was actually effective in that population, in the Medicare population that was over 65. And so we would have registries, we would require a little bit more data, and we're seeing, you know, a push, I think, from regulators all across the world where they want the data to say, does this actually work? Does it work better than what's already available on the market? And that's also impacting their pricing decisions. So tell us a little bit about, you know, kind of given the, I would say, the new environment around regulations, how do you think technology and government can intersect to help improve that flow of data and the use of data?
Well, I mean, honestly, I think the government has been the greatest catalyst for innovation in this space. I mean, when you think about manufacturers, they generally are risk averse when it comes to that, because you want to do whatever meets the threshold that's been laid out by regulators around the world. So honestly, with the push from the FDA and many of the other global regulators to really develop guidances, frameworks, and certainly incentivize many of the manufacturers to utilize RWE and AI for other purposes, you're seeing greater interest in utilizing it. And I mean, as I spoke to before, I mean, before it was really treated as not real science, and no one would use it to make decision making. But what we found, even in light of what we saw in the development of the vaccine during the pandemic, is that it really truly can accelerate many of our R&D efforts as we know it, and we should use it more.
Right. What was exciting was the work that Oracle did during the pandemic. You know, they stood up new systems that'll kind of encourage people to get the vaccines and then report their outcomes. And so we could very quickly see the impact of the vaccines, which was very instrumental in getting people on board. And that's a great example of real world data and how it can really impact what goes on for doctors and patients. So these are just a couple of, or a lot of the issues that we're talking about. Michelle, as you go forward, what role do you think technology is going to play as you go forward? How are you thinking about AI, and what would you like to see?
So, you know, when we really think at Syneos Health, I mean, we're AI enabled today. Like, we have to be. Like, we have to use artificial intelligence to get insights and take different data sets and put them together to understand what's really going on with the patient, so that we're able to think through, you know, how do you find the right patient, and then how do you enable that patient to participate, right? And so, I'll give you an example. We've built a patient platform, a patient participation platform. So it allows us to first find the patients that we believe, you know, are a good fit for the trial. It also allows them to, you know, communicate the types of thing they would be interested in, the types of trials they'd be interested in, and then we're matching, you know, those patients with the clinical trials that are available to them. So you're hopefully making a good choice at the beginning, right? You understand the protocol, you understand the patient population that's necessary to be enrolled, and you're thinking about how are you going to make sure that you're making that perfect match. And it's engaging the patient, right? When you really think about this whole, you know, the clinical trial continuum, You know, the key here isn't just finding the patient, it's creating an environment for the patient to thrive throughout the clinical trial. And there's so many access challenges and so many barriers to patients participating, right? And so at Syneos Health, we've been thinking a lot about how do you reduce those barriers to success, right? So obviously using data and technology to be able to think through how do you find the right patients with the right disease states. Thinking through how do you create a different experience, right? So like we've made investments in companies like Ride Health. I mean, you know this from your work, that half the time the challenge is the patient just can't get there, or they can't get a babysitter. It's like your life gets in the way of you being able to do the things you want to do, right? Thinking through how do you bring healthcare to patients, right? So how do you reduce the burden of having to go to a site? What can you collect at home? How do you use some of the capabilities that we saw thrive, as you said, through the pandemic to decentralize some of the things that will allow patients to collect data at home? You know, we have a mobile nurse platform now where we're bringing nurses into people's homes and into the community centers to be able to collect some of the data and work with patients so that you're reducing the burden. So, you know, how do you bring it into their home, right? That's a big part of what we're thinking about. And, you know, I'm not naive, and I don't think anybody in this business is naive. This takes a village. Right. This takes the whole healthcare system cooperating so that you can create a better opportunity for diverse patients to A, trust the system, B, have a good experience, and C, make sure they're being matched to the right opportunity. And so that's one of the things we're really excited about is our partnership with Oracle, is thinking about, you know, how do we really truly understand and build a platform that allows us to understand patients and really targeting that diverse patient population. We think it is a game changer. You know, there's tons of regulation around it, but, you know, people have been talking about this forever. I think we're at a time where we're really going to be able to do something about it.
Well, I'm excited, and one of the neat things is that as you talk, coming from more of the research side, the challenges that you are talking about are the same challenges that health systems are facing. And so as Oracle solves these problems, they're solving them not only for health systems, but we're solving a lot of problems for clinical research, and which is why our focus is on bridging that gap between research and actual care. So, Chris, last word in terms of real-world evidence. What would you say is sort of the holy grail in terms of the data and what you'd like to see in terms of the tools that you would want to see?
I think that people need to understand we're still in the infancy stages of this, what we can really do. And honestly, I don't think we understand. We haven't been smart enough to know what all we can do with all the different data that we have out there. And I think even generally in the last decade, we've seen a voluminous amount of data generated, but it's of varied types, right? I mean, so now we're incorporating genetic and genomic data along with the phenotypic data, along with environmental data, along with the social determinants data that Michelle is alluding to really understand the overall patient profile and the patient experience. I think that I'm excited for the use of AI to be able to better analyze much of that data that we haven't been able to do ourselves, right? And how it can augment much of the intelligence that we've generated up to this point. I think that we'll see greater efforts made in many of our clinical research efforts with earlier or accelerated identification of biomarkers. We'll see greater study design. We'll see an incorporation of more decentralized trials and greater access using digital technologies, which will give us more access to more data and what we're actually seeing. That really affects outcomes, because that's really what we're getting to.
Right. Well, that's exciting. I think over the next couple of days, you're going to hear more about what Oracle is doing to solve those problems. I think that data is definitely flowing better than it has before, but our challenge now is gaining meaningful insights from the data and being able to combine different data sets, as you said. So stay tuned. I think you're going to hear a lot more about what Oracle is doing to solve those problems. So thank you very much, Michelle and Chris. Appreciate you being here today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
When Tristan arrived to us, we quickly realized he's as sick as you can get and still be alive.
He was gray and ashen and unstable and looked like a person who was actively dying.
And the first thing you kind of think of is, are we going to be able to get him out of this and get him stable?
It was just this never-ending sprint of, is he alive? Is he alive now? Can we get a heart? And then we got the heart, and it was such a relief. I said yes, I consented. I signed everything up. I called all of our families and said, this is happening. And then 2 hours later, they called back and said, it's not the right fit. The donor was not the height that we thought the donor was, because the height and weight were entered incorrectly. I don't know where that error came from. When I was shouting out his last wishes and his allergies, did I get his height wrong? Did I get his weight wrong? And I remember just being defeated and wondering, will he make it to the next heart?
You got the sickest person in the world who's young, and it's the kind of scenario where you basically just keep going.
It's always very gratifying to see somebody walk out of the hospital having met them in extremis.
You got a family that was allowed to be whole again. That's why it's still very easy to be romantic about heart surgery, because you got stories like that.
When we started to dig in, mainly to thank people, we wanted to make sure that we were keeping an open mind of all the different elements that had to go right for you to get your heart in 48 hours. And as we started to peel back the layers, we started to realize what a kind of miraculous fluke that everything worked as well as it did. And it didn't even work perfectly because we still had that mismatched heart.
What we've learned is a lot of these programs and a lot of the ecosystem stakeholders in so many ways are working independently and in siloed environments. That collaboration, that infrastructure, that connective tissue that you hope exists doesn't exist as strongly as you'd like it to. Mistakes are made.
We started to see that it was mainly a collaboration and a tech and a data problem, and those are all solvable problems.
Please welcome to the stage, Steve Miranda.
Great. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here today at the Oracle Health Conference, I guess the first Oracle Health Conference. So I'm going to shift gears a little bit and give you a bit of background on things that you may not be familiar with. And Ascension Health really alluded to it. They gave you a nice setup before I joined, talking about our Fusion applications and what is that and how do we use that to help our customers. So with Fusion applications, we like to describe them as we give our customers everything they need to manage their back office operations, their operations in general. We provide innovation that matters to drive their businesses and drive better outcomes, and we do it with a commitment to our customers' success. Now, what do I mean by all of that? First, what do I mean by everything you need? So in addition to the products you're well familiar with from Oracle Health and from Cerner, we sit on top of the exact same technology stack that was referenced earlier today, our OCI infrastructure. For our customers, what does that mean? It means that you never have to worry about technical debt. So gone are the days where we have to worry about, well, I have to upgrade this hardware, or upgrade this database, or this operating system. A bunch of that infrastructure work, that plumbing work, we're the only vendor that's in the technology business as well as the application business, and so we take care of all that for you. And then what my team builds are the horizontal applications on top of that infrastructure. So things like what we call CRM applications, or sales, service, marketing. Supply chain applications, including supply chain planning, supply chain fulfillment, transportation management, inventory, warehouse management, field service, depot repair, those type of operations, which again are of a horizontal nature, but also have very specific functionality within the context of healthcare. And then finally, we provide our back office systems of HR, including payroll, benefits, core HR, talent management and recruiting, and financials, end-to-end financials for statutory reporting, management reporting, tax, everything you need to run your business and organization. And we do this on behalf of over 14,000 customers today in the cloud, some of the largest organizations anywhere in the world across financial services, across telecommunications, and many customers, some of you here today, across healthcare, both in the provider space. In fact, you'll hear Providence Health speak in my keynote on Wednesday about their adoption end-to-end supply chain, finance, HR, payroll. We've partnered for years with Kaiser Permanente, and we also have partners and customers in academic centers and partners on the payer side. Every logo you see, every customer you speak to in financial services or telco, every customer that we talk about, all run on the exact same version of our cloud software. and that exact same version of that cloud infrastructure. And because of that, we're able to deliver innovation throughout 4 updates every year, and we've done this for the last 6 years. And each quarter, each update contains, on average, 100 new features in every area. So 100 new features in supply chain, 100 in HR, 100 in finance, et cetera. And notably to this group, our mission and what we've been given is to truly focus on those applications as it relates to your problems in delivering care in healthcare. And I feel like I should give a thank you to Ascension, who you should come up and do this presentation for me. These are the features that we are building, what was referred to earlier. And for me, who's in the software business, but a little bit new to the healthcare side of things, I'd boil it down this way. There is a shocking disconnect between the systems you use to deliver health and patient care today and the systems you use to manage the business. And what we are doing is we're connecting those. And what we're delivering and announcing at this conference is in 3 specific areas. In supply chain, we've added brand new feature on replenishment management, replenishment planning, and PAR management. We've connected so that you have integrated recall management. In HCM, we really focused on learning, scheduling, and payroll. So having a tighter connection, not only with Cerner, but as referenced earlier, open to any EMR, so that you have the scheduling system feeding the HR payroll system, so that caregivers not only could be scheduled appropriately, but could spend their time delivering care and not worried about entering their time, or more appropriate, or more likely, fixing their time so they get the appropriate payroll. And in an ERP, delivering an integrated planning so that you can have an integrated financial plan from your finance system all the way through to the end-to-end delivery system. And so our mission, and take these as examples of what we're delivering this year, delivering end-to-end to give you better business outcome, so that whether you're a Cerner customer today and you add components of the Fusion applications, you can deliver better outcomes to your business, and most importantly, better outcomes to your patients. With that, it's my pleasure to introduce a special video from our Executive Vice President of Oracle Financial Services, Sonny Singh.
Hello, everyone. A warm welcome to all of you. Let's transition to another hot topic, the rising administrative costs and complexity that's weighing on the healthcare industry today. To understand the magnitude of these challenges, let's look at some data. According to the American Hospital Association, 78% of providers say that billing and claims processing remain a major hurdle. And 28% of annual administrative spending could be saved without compromising quality or access. The data illustrates the challenges. They also represent an abundant opportunity. I believe that together we can create a step change in efficiencies that lower costs and improve the patient experience. What would this mean? This would mean that patients understand their out-of-pocket costs upfront, and providers receive accurate and timely reimbursements. But ingrained processes make this difficult to achieve. Price estimates aren't based on complete coverage information, leading to surprise bills. Current rules for authorizations cause delays. Additionally, provider and payer claims processes are disconnected. This increases costs, creates billing inaccuracies, and delays revenue recognition. At Oracle, our applications are designed to address these complex challenges. We deliver innovative approaches to accelerate the complete revenue cycle. We provide full coverage discovery that improves price transparency, and we automate authorization requests by integrating them within the clinical workflow. Our vision is to achieve an interconnected ecosystem of provider billing and payer claims processing, an ecosystem that delivers new efficiencies, cost transparency, and above all, a truly patient-centric experience. I hope that the rest of your event is great, and we look forward to working with you and your teams. Thank you.
Please welcome to the stage Stephanie Trunzo, joined by Dr. Beth Kushner.
So we're here to talk now about financials, right? So billing and claims, we just heard Sonny talking about some of the ways that we're going to be connecting the dots between the EHR and the revenue systems. And what we really want to be able to do is help families like the Maces that we've been seeing in the videos with financial responsibility during those difficult times. So I want to just welcome you, Beth. It's so good to have you here, talk to you again. And Beth is the CMIO at St. Joseph's Health. Because we're really all in this together, in the end, we're all patients at some point, wanting an easier system. So let's talk about how we're going to really make that a reality. As the CMIO, you kind of wear two different hats. So you're approaching this both from a clinical perspective as well as a technical perspective. What would you say you find as maybe the biggest opportunity that we can really achieve within this billing and claims space?
So I love the idea of a clinically driven revenue cycle. I think it's an important concept. We need to synergistically use what the provider does, the clinician in the EHR, and we need to be able to translate that into our revenue systems. We can't be siloed, but by using a clinically driven revenue system, we're able to gather the most amount of information, we're able to understand what happens at the bedside and translate that into a claim that will then get paid.
So when you think about the overall revenue system, the full revenue cycle, Dr. Kushner, what are your thoughts on how a connected system, as you were saying, truly would work? What are your future plans as well for how you're going to connect those systems in your own health system?
So in my vision for the future, I want to see a system that is both inpatient and outpatient, one that will help to educate the providers, to help educate those who use it to make better choices, and to be able to clearly demonstrate what they performed. At my hospital system, we currently use both Sorian Financials for inpatient, and we use Cerner's product outpatient. Right now, we're doing the groundwork to be able to merge those two systems together so they synergistically work together so we have an end-to-end solution. And while that may seem relatively simple, for many of you who are here in this audience and who's at home, you understand that there is a lot of prep work where it could be we need to move people from different registration platforms together. We need to be able to engage and access our patients. We need to be able to do the prep work so we can then move forward to Revelate. I had the opportunity last year to see Revelate. I thought it was an amazing product. Getting to see both Sorian Financials and Cerner Practice Management, it is a really beautiful combination of both of those platforms. I look forward to doing the prep work this year so we can then go forward to implement it so we have a better end-to-end solution.
That's amazing. You know, one of the things that you've spoken about previously was this real focus on the patient as part of this story, so the patient not being separate from the understanding of the financial system.
Absolutely. One of the biggest issues if you are a patient is you're kind of flying in the dark. And it's important to understand that the patient, it's their health, it's their journey. And being from a mission-driven hospital system, I want to make sure that I'm able to utilize the patient's healthcare dollar to its absolute maximum. It's important to me, it's important to my colleagues, it's important to the mission for the hospital system that I work for. And by giving price transparency, by making sure that we don't do duplicate charges, we're going to be able to make sure that we give the best possible outcome for our patient, which in turn will lead towards a healthier patient as well.
So, you know, we kind of joked about when we came out that we are talking about the financial system sometimes feels like the piece of this story that is maybe not the virtuous piece, right? And the reality is that health is also a business. And we heard Sonny talking a little bit about that. Steve Miranda also sharing about how we think about health as a business. So I believe we really do have to address the business as well in order to make a human-centric overall health system. How much of a challenge is the current system? What would it mean to solve this problem?
So I think it's important just to talk about it in the upfront way. Typically talking about charges and revenue and financial portions of healthcare is kind of this taboo subject that most people don't want to talk about. And I'm here to talk about it. I like talking about it. I think it's an important subject for all of us to be comfortable with. If there's no money, there's no mission. And I think it's important to be okay with that. We, of course, want to be respectful and we want to be cognizant, we want to be aware, but it's important to have the conversation. My goal is for every patient, there will be nothing that the provider does that they shouldn't, that they would charge for if they didn't do it. But if you perform the work, which often is done, then we want to be able to be reimbursed for it in a clear and linear way. I want my providers to be an educated part of the system. They should be an educated participant, but they don't have to own the revenue cycle. We have an incredible team who does own our revenue cycle, and that's what they do. And my hope and my vision for the future is that we allow those who are the professionals to be able to utilize the information the clinicians do to be able to have better outcomes. I think it's limitless. I think that there is so many opportunities, both financial and towards creating a healthier future for everybody by talking about the revenue cycle, by taking away some of the taboo information, and making it a transparent part of healthcare as it already is.
Yeah, I think that the point that you make about we're obviously connecting technology, but you're also talking about connecting each stakeholder in the system, even if it's not the part that they're actively playing. So the clinician understanding what's happening in the financial systems, understanding the impact of it, but not having to know the details of a particular code.
Exactly. I don't want physicians to be coders unless you love coding, in which case that's fantastic. But that's not necessary. I want a clinician to be a clinician. I want them to be able to go to the bedside and provide the best quality care. I also want the hospital to be able to be reimbursed for that best quality care. So I think by the provider and the nurses and every ancillary person to be able to understand these are the components. Registration is incredibly important. 40% of what goes on a claim is gathered during registration. It's important for your registrar to see the value and the significance that they play in making that clean claim happen. So by having these conversations and by educating and leveraging our EHR as an educational tool, we really will be able to improve our process and make inefficiencies go away.
And through the work that you're already doing, are you starting to see the changes in the reimbursements going up?
So AI technology is this incredible, powerhouse. Instead of calling it artificial intelligence, I prefer to call it augmented intelligence. I want to be able to have the most important thing be face up for the provider and some of the menial smaller tasks to kind of go to the wayside. I've seen with some of the practices that we've gone live with AI coding technology, our clean claim rate is going up. And that's incredibly important. I don't want people to have to work on denials, nor do I want providers to have to sit and continue to redo items or get clarifications if that's not necessary.
That's great. So essentially, we're talking about connecting three disparate pieces of the healthcare experience, the business ops, the clinical billing, and the payer receivables. And that's going to make a better experience both for the patients and the system users. So I want to thank you. It's always wonderful to talk with you. Thanks for joining us again, Dr. Kushner, for a really awesome dialogue.
Thank you.
So it was good to have you. Thank you. So before I turn it over to Mike, he's going to talk about new innovations and actually demo some of the things that we're doing to address the challenges that you've heard about here today. I'd like to wrap up the patient story that we've been hearing about. Tristan and Jordan Mace's story represents really the best and the worst of healthcare. Doctors saved his life and gave him a new life with a heart transplant. That's miraculous. Yet, his wife had to recall his medical history during the worst moments of her life. There was inaccurate data about his height and weight, and the system was inefficient. While this is a transplant story, it touches so many parts of healthcare. ER, ICU, surgery, physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy, follow-on care, ongoing medications and appointments. That's why we have to connect the entire ecosystem. And data needs to be available in real time. The difference between life and death can be a matter of minutes or seconds. It's because of the Mace's story that we're here talking to you today. Stories like theirs are central to our mission. Behind these experiences, making them better, easier, more efficient, safer, it's technology. We have to lead with a focus on the patient. I'd like to invite two special guests to the stage to talk about how they're paying it forward and working with organizations and companies like Oracle across the healthcare ecosystem to make a difference. So let's please welcome Tristan and Jordan Mace to the stage. Well, there you have it. Thank you for sharing your story. It's a very emotional story. It's clearly touched everybody here in the audience. It takes a lot of courage, and I appreciate personally you being here. I know that you're telling your story for another reason, though. So can you talk to us a bit about the purpose that kind of has come through this very difficult journey?
We wanted to use our experience, as beautiful and tragic and difficult and wonderful as it has been, to use this bonus time to really drive change. Organ donation, organ transplant is society's best and most beautiful and altruistic gift to itself. And when we do this well, humanity, it represents us in the best way. And yet, far too often in the United States, what we're seeing right now is that those outcomes in transplant don't mirror the generosity of donors. And so that's led us to create Valeos. It's a patient-centric 501c3 designed specifically to improve outcomes in transplant through data, technology, and collaboration. So what we're doing is convening leaders across transplant, healthcare, public policy, technology, government, et cetera, to bring disparate sources of data together. So from transplant centers, organ procurement organizations, hospitals, transportation and logistics companies, and pull all of that together into a way that we can aggregate it, standardize it, and then make sense of that to be able to unlock new insights and drive industry and advancement that improves the patient and the donor experience.
So being familiar with your story and sharing now with the audience, would you mind maybe sharing a little bit about the conversation that led to this? It was, I think, the first night, actually, right? When
Yes.
Tristan, yeah.
He woke up the first time and he said, I want to build something, and I think I want it to be about hearts. And I said, okay, this is a community that we did not have any expectation that we'd be a part of. It's not a community that you ever intend to be within. And we said, we want to do something for this community, we want to advance it, and we want to amplify the message. And so that's where Valeos came. Valeos means Valeo, which is to be well, to be strong, and it also means farewell, which is both sides of the organ transplant ecosystem. And OS for operating system, because it's obviously going to be built off of data. And that's the part that we're so grateful to talk about today, is that, yes, connectivity through data, the theme of this week, is unbelievably important. But we'd really urge the audience to think about the fact that every data point is a person, and that patient ID has a family. And we would really encourage you to think about the people behind the data. You were just talking about that. The humanity behind the data, that's the who behind the why. And we're very grateful to be able to talk about that.
Yeah, whether it is we're talking about a financial system, a billing system, a clinical system, a patient engagement system, in the end, it is all human-centric. It's people, as you said, it's people with families.
Yes.
Yeah. It's really incredible. It's so profound. It takes all of us. We've heard that from multiple people on stage today. You've now told your very personal story, and knowing both of you, you really don't want this to be about you, right? So what is that message you would like the audience to walk away with today?
Well, it's ultimately about the patient, right? And so in transplant, for us, what that means is increasing the quantity of transplants. So making with greater access and equity to high quality transplants. That's also simultaneously looking at the organ allocation policies. How do you make those more effective and more efficient that reduce and shorten the wait list time? And then importantly, for the community that exists post-transplant, such as myself, how do you standardize care protocols and be able to do that in a way that you're able to live a longer and a healthier life? And so if you bring all of that together, and ultimately that does require this theme of connected data, that's where you improve the lives pre-transplant, when you're talking about somebody who is just recently diagnosed with end-stage organ failure, all the way to post-transplant to somebody's final days, of being able to thematically connect that. And I think the other area for us too is we'd be remiss to not recognize that the generosity of my organ donor is the reason that I'm here today. There are countless people, some known to us, some unknown to us, that were instrumental in saving my life. But part of that too is the recognition, if you're registered to be an organ donor, we thank you. If you're not, we sincerely hope that you consider it. It has profoundly changed our lives, and someday it could change your life too.
So we need to solve for these inefficiencies, inequities, poor outcomes that we see across healthcare. Where you live or the experiences you have shouldn't determine the care that you receive, the access to the caregivers. So this collaboration is really important. This is where the real work truly begins. So I do want to say thank you to both of you. But before I let you go, I know you have one more piece of exciting good news to share.
Yes, we sure do. So I was expecting when Tristan went down and got the heart transplant, and I'm expecting again as we are building our nonprofit for organ transplants, and we're so grateful for that because this little life wouldn't be here if hundreds and hundreds of people known and unknown to us, Tristan's donor, if they hadn't all been working in concert to keep his life alive. So we're very grateful. We're very grateful for your collaboration as well. So thank you so much.
We have a little gift for you, and
oh my goodness, thank you so much. Oh my gosh, well, we will treasure this. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. So we're excited that a little Oracle baby will be wearing a little Oracle onesie in the future.
We'll have that on the keynote next year. We'll have a picture.
Excellent. So there's really not much more we can say here. You guys are incredible. I'm forever grateful that you were able to join us and share this story. And I'm just very, very pleased to know you. So thank you guys so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Please welcome to the stage, Mike Sicilia.
Hi, everyone, and thank you to all of our speakers today, especially Tristan and Jordan for sharing their story, and all of our customers and partners who highlighted what they're doing, the great work that they're doing with us as partners as well. And thank you, all of you, for spending some of your week here with us. I know that a lot of you were used to going to the event in Kansas City. We hope you enjoy the new and expanded event here in Las Vegas and get the most out of this week. You know, the changes that you've heard about today are ones that people all over the world face in healthcare. This is not a US problem. This is not a Middle East problem. This is not a Latin America problem. This is a global problem. And our mission is to solve healthcare problems and bring better care to patients and better solutions to all of you holistically and globally. We are a global operator. We're not a regional operator, and we're looking at the power of being able to synchronize data sets and work with providers throughout the world to really, we think, advance the field of medicine. And to do that, we're leveraging now the best of Oracle's technology with the best of Cerner's healthcare knowledge. So it's only been just over a year. In some ways, it seems longer. In some ways, it seems like yesterday that we were together in Kansas City announcing the acquisition of Cerner. And now it's time to talk about all of the things that we've been working on for the last year together that we may not have revealed, but hopefully you'll see a few things today that excites you. So, you heard Steve say, we're really thinking about connecting the ecosystem. It's not just about the EHR, it's not just about the back office applications, it's not just about the cloud infrastructure. It's really about bringing all of that together and making sure that we focus every one of those decisions on improving the productivity, the usability, and the lives for all of you, and ultimately doing the same thing for our patients. The systems have to be as easy and intuitive to access and use as any e-commerce system out there today. That's true whether you're a provider, that's true whether you're a patient. I think the day will come very soon, and hopefully you'll see some of this in the demo, where the need for sophisticated training to use even the most intense clinical workflows in the systems completely disappears. Simple video reminders, simple ad hoc training reminders can be the norm. These systems need to be easy to use. As we know right now, in the current state, that's not always the case. So we are working in parallel with our partners and our technology partners, as well as our internal teams at Oracle, to completely redefine the EHR space, to completely redefine the usability around electronic health records, to completely redefine and reimagine the consumer portal. We're going to show you some of that here in just a bit. In order to get there, in order to get that transformation, and to make it real for all of you, there are three major things that we're focused on. The first is OCI, or the Oracle Cloud Infrastructure. That is the foundation. OCI is the backbone for all of Oracle's mission-critical business today. Our banking customers, our communications customers, our government customers, our retail customers, our food and beverage customers, our hospitality customers. In fact, you all checked into many of the hotels here along the Las Vegas Strip, hopefully successfully. I know we had some incidents here on the Strip in the last couple weeks, not with Oracle technology, by the way. But, and you all probably went to your favorite coffee shop and made or offered some in-room dining or something. And I can promise you that you all touched the Oracle backbone of technology to make that happen, probably without even knowing that it was Oracle powering all those things. So these mission-critical 24-hour, 7 operations are running on OCI today. Our investment in OCI, we think, will allow us to build a more open, intelligent, cloud-based healthcare platform. And to do so, we're announcing that we're going to increase the surface area of the APIs, the application programming interfaces. That's the things that your IT department, your partners, and other third parties are using to connect to Cerner Millennium, PowerWorks, CommunityWorks, Healthy Intent, and so on today by 300% in the next 12 months. And we're making every single API public. Means that you can use them yourself to replace components, your partners can use them, and frankly, our competitors are welcome and encouraged to use them as well. If our competitors want to host their technology alongside Cerner technology, alongside Oracle ERP technology in OCI, and use these APIs, they're welcome and encouraged to do so. I think the key to solving interoperability at the technology level in healthcare is that we have no such thing as private APIs. No such thing as a private or sophisticated or cryptic or in some cases even strange way to access data from electronic health record systems. It's a basic human right that we should have access to our health records longitudinally anytime we need it. There is no technology barrier to making that happen today. The barriers today are political and economic. So we're going to put a stake in the ground, and we're making every single API public. So when we're connecting our HCM system, our human capital management system, to the Cerner EHR, so that we can determine nursing requirements for the ICU 2 days from now or 26 hours from now, based upon the number of patients that are matriculating through the emergency department, we're going to use an API to do that. And we're going to do that in the same way that you can do that yourself if you'd like to use an alternative system as well. The only way to make it happen, the only way to make everything interoperability is to make it all public. There's nothing hidden, there's nothing transparent about it. I also encourage you to lobby our competitors to do exactly the same thing. And I think you may know who some of them are around data access to EHR. We'd appreciate your help in making that happen. Also, security is top of mind. OCI is one of the only cloud hyperscalers certified to run in the public cloud, certified to run in a dedicated region, which means it can run in your premise, and also certified by the United States government and governments throughout the world for intelligence class workloads. So certainly, if it's good enough to run the most sophisticated, sensitive intelligence workloads in the world, we think it's a great fit to run probably the most important asset for humanity, which is their healthcare records today. Our existing solutions are also moving to OCI. What we're announcing right now is that we will have moved hundreds of Cerner customers, not dozens, not 10, not 15, hundreds of Cerner customers to OCI this calendar year. And more will progress as we go on month by month by month by month. So by sticking with this and going through this transition with us, which will be transparent to you, you're going to get better security, better reliability, and the only cloud in the world that has the control plane separated from the applications plane, which means that in the event of cyber issues, which unfortunately plague this industry in a disproportionate rate, your data is separated from the actual code of the application. Your data is separated from the way that users authenticate and log into the systems. We believe, and governments throughout the world have also testified, that it is the most secure cloud in the world. And very soon, all of your data from Cerner will be running on OCI. The next thing, focus area number 2 is artificial intelligence. I actually don't like the word artificial intelligence. I like to call it applied intelligence, because at the root of it, artificial intelligence or applied intelligence requires data. It requires actual data for it to be able to do anything with it. Without data, there is no API. So what we're also focused on, though, with AI is not just AI for the sense of AI. So there are a lot of things that's, especially in this space right now, consumer-grade large language models. You can go as a patient, which I think is somewhat dangerous, go try to self-diagnose yourself by using models which largely hallucinate, largely go off track, and give some advice that I'm sure all of you as providers would cringe at if you saw the results of it. That's not what we want to do. We're talking about applied AI and embedding these solutions right into the challenges, right into the clinical workflows of the Millennium application, right into the Healthy Intent platform, which we'll rename Health Data Intelligence Platform, and I'll cover that in just a second, and making AI a feature in the applications. We'll do the heavy lifting for you, and we'll do it on your data. If you'd like to partner with other systems, if you'd like to join the Health Learning Network, if you'd like to share your data in de-identified form with us or other providers, you're welcome to. If you don't want to do that, you don't have to. And we're still going to give you all the power of large language models, all the power of insights into your data, and allow you to get benefit from this right inside the tool set today. I also think there's tremendous opportunities for embedded AI, for specialty medicine, and for looking at, what's the right size of a data set. If you look at one of the drivers for what's called hallucinations, which means that the computer sort of makes things up, which is why it's actually not artificial, because humans do pretty much the same thing sometimes, right? So if it's a lot actually like we go through a decision process, the difference is the computer can do it far more quickly and far more accurately with large data sets than we can. But think about if you're looking at a specialty data set like pediatric oncology, much better, as an example, much better to train a large language model on only that special data set than pulling a bunch of stuff that doesn't matter. You're going to limit the hallucinations, and it's a misnomer to think that you need incredibly large data sets to actually get intelligence or potential clinical pathways from a particular disease management, as the case may be. We don't need to do that. We can train the models on very small data sets to actually create intelligence, or small relative to the size of the public internet, for example, and we think great things for you in a much more consumable way. So, thinking about AI in general, applied intelligence, artificial intelligence, there are really 3 main pillars to AI. The first is what I call classic AI, which used to be called machine learning. When AI moniker became very popular about 18 months ago, you haven't heard much about the term machine learning. It's still there. It's still the essence. And really what it means is looking for patterns in data, and that allows us to automate tasks, identify disease symptoms earlier, and then move into the generative space. So that's really the essence of it. That's the foundation. Let's look for these data sets, be they big or small, and look for patterns. Even in small data sets, it's easy to miss patterns, particularly when you're looking at spanning disparate providers, as an example. The next piece, which is getting a lot of the buzz today, and a lot of the attention today, is what's called generative AI, or large language models. And what that means is that the computers have become very good at predicting what the next word may be in a narrative. And they do that in rapid succession, and then they put together sentences, sentences put together paragraphs, and paragraphs put together narratives. What's shocking is that in the last 18 months, specifically, they've become incredibly accurate. Incredibly accurate. I still think require a little bit of tuning, but pretty good for automating routine tasks like discharge notes, doctor's notes, medication notes, and things like that. And then finally, the other piece of it is high performance compute, and really running computer simulation, if you will, for things like Seema spoke about, for molecular discovery, and being able to figure out whether or not we can do a lot of the simulation on using computers rather than experimenting on humans very early in the cycle of a new molecule that might be a therapeutic as we go forward. So all three of those things are investment areas for us. And all three of them require GPUs. And if you're familiar with computer science, you used to see the word CPU, but GPU is not a typo. It's graphics processing unit. And what's happened over time is that it was discovered that GPUs, graphics processing units, are actually far more effective at dealing with very large data sets, and the computational power among GPUs is far more effective than a traditional CPU, a much better fit for AI. So we're investing very heavily in GPUs. It's also no secret that there's a worldwide shortage of GPUs happening right now, and it's not predicted to get any better really anytime soon. So when you want to look at the combination of GPUs and high performance compute for things like molecular discovery, time is money, because you pay by the cycle to consume these GPUs. We can run this, and we can run these GPUs specifically in our partnership with NVIDIA at world-class speeds. In fact, one of the very first things that happened was that an omics company set a world record for a whole genome processing using the NVIDIA GPU chipset on top of the Oracle Cloud. I think you'll continue to see more of these things. I think you'll continue to see whole genome sequencing, let alone and even pathogen sequencing, which is far less compute intensive, to become the norm. And I think you'll see this start to come out as a service that we can offer together with partners like NVIDIA. We're also partnering with Cohere on large language models, particularly trained on medical data sets. Again, the huge difference, unlike some of the other large language models on the market, is that you control the data. If you want to keep your data in your cloud instance and you don't want to share it with anybody else, you don't have to. You'll still get all the benefit of large language models and not having to join forces. If you like to join forces on your data with other providers in a de-identified model, I think that's going to have great utility as well. So really, by doing all that, we're activating systems of intelligence, and we're creating systems of record into systems of intelligence. And I think if we look at, particularly if we go back to the EHR for a second and the genesis of EHRs, which were constructed by billers and are largely transactional systems, there's been a lot of trying to morph and merge these things into better systems of intelligence. AI can really take these traditionally transactional systems and we think completely turn them into systems of intelligence, meaning that at the point of care, they can make better decisions and help you make better decisions for your patients rather than having to punch out the different systems or go run models or go have somebody in your informatics department go try to look at some patterns for you. We need to be able to do that right at the point of care. That's true for care pathways, that's true for reimbursements, that's true for adjudications, that's true for approvals. All of those things with embedded AI are happening, and we're incorporating those into our systems today, along with digital assistants and voice recognition as well. We're also making unique data investments to move from data to insights. So together with the Cerner team that has been focused on Healthy Intent, you know the product called Healthy Intent, we are completely reimagining and relaunching that and announcing the general availability of Healthy Intent going forward, running on OCI, which gives it tremendous scale and the ability to deliver insights in our web-based applications like Healthy Intent and actually take action on them and go right back into and drill into the electronic health record directly from Healthy Intent. We'll show that in just a bit as you may need to. So whether you're a health system, a state, a nation, a payer, or provider, the ability to aggregate and harmonize and orchestrate very large data sets is here. And I think that by combining the Cerner IP with the Oracle technology, which was the thesis and basis of our acquisition of Cerner, and our joining together of these two things, we're delivering something here that's going to be quite remarkable. The final focus area is evolving the electronic health record. You know, no secret that usability, things like Citrix logons, stuff like that are frustrations for end users of the electronic health record. So we've completely rethought about system interactions. We've completely rethought about how long it takes somebody to get their job done using this system. And I think that we are on the verge of completely eliminating pajama time as a result. And this is not about going from 10 clicks to 7 clicks or 6 clicks to 5 clicks. This is about completely eliminating clicks where we can and where it makes sense. And that is not a tomorrow that's years away. That is a tomorrow that's here. And we're very proud to show you some of the work that we've done on that as we go forward. So tomorrow, very soon, our model will allow you to use our apps and solutions, create your own solutions, or connect an entire ecosystem of applications with all the APIs that I mentioned, and to be able to do that in a cloud-based, frictionless, modular way. So that's a lot of words about all the things that we're doing. I'd like to bring it all together, and I'd like to show you what we're doing here as we focus on the consumer experience. We started with registration and scheduling and some of the consumer portal. You're going to see that, and I want to show you what we've been working on to address your workforce challenges, streamline operations, reduce costs, and meet your patients' expectations, which are consumer-grade applications. So with that, we are going to show you how the system works. This is the new system that works through the eyes of a patient, a front office worker, and a doctor. So I'd like to invite Julie Smith and Dr. David Feinberg to the stage to help out. Julie is going to be our patient. David, who is an actual doctor, is going to play the front office worker, and then we're going to see him as Julie's primary care provider, Dr. Feinberg, within the clinic. Okay, so to set the stage, Julie has just moved to the area, and she wants to establish a primary care provider with a clinic near her house. Julie calls the clinic to schedule an appointment, and because it's her first time at this clinic, she needs to register. When the front desk receives Julie's call, they'll log in the system to create a new patient. Historically, the person registering a new patient would need to ask for all her details. Now, David simply asks for the bare minimum information. He asks for her first name, last name, date of birth, and cell phone number. That's all he needs to get Julie scheduled. She'll be able to complete the registration on her own time. With this new approach, the time the front office staff spends on administrative tasks is reduced. The experience is more like what Julie has come to expect from her engagement across other industries. It's paperless and it's simple. And she's empowered to complete her personal information on her own time and in private. David sends Julie a link to complete her registration, and since she's already on the phone, she'll go ahead and schedule her initial appointment with the front desk. In the future, she can also schedule appointments by herself online. Let's walk through the self-registration process with Julie. Julie's received the registration link via text. She can also access this link in her patient portal, and Julie's going to provide her identifying information to verify who she is, and she enters some additional information as well. One of the first things she'll need to do is add her identification. She can do that right from her mobile phone, either taking a photo or using saved photos of her ID. She conveniently keeps saved images of her cards in her photo library that she's going to upload. The OCI Document Understanding Service is going to recognize all the fields and automatically populate them with information from the front of her ID. The barcode scanning service will fill in the information from the back of the ID that may be missing or unavailable from the front of the card. She reviews the information automatically to make sure that it's captured correctly, and these cards will now be saved securely in Julie's file. So at her next visit, she simply will just have to review and verify the information or make any updates that may be necessary. Now, Julie needs to add her insurance information. So she uploads a photo of the front of her insurance card and a photo of the back of her insurance card. Once again, it's the OCI document understanding service that's going to autofill all of these fields. So Julie's completed this information conveniently at home on her phone. She could have taken a photo of the cards using her phone or used an in-office tablet. Now she's going to review the HIPAA agreement and any other forms that the clinic needs. She signs electronically, and now she's fully registered. So moving along, now time has passed, and Julie's now an established patient with the clinic and with Dr. Feinberg. Last week, she was diagnosed with community-acquired pneumonia and given antibiotics. Dr. Feinberg is seeing Julie today to ensure her antibiotic regimen is effective and to follow up on chronic conditions. So she receives a message in her patient portal to schedule this follow-up appointment. And now that Julie's an existing patient with the clinic, she can schedule this follow-up appointment on her own. Let's walk through the self-scheduling process with Julie. So she enters her username and password to pull up a list of appointment options. And she's going to select the one that best fits her schedule. She can add this directly to her calendar right from the mobile device. Today is Julie's follow-up visit, so I'd like to first show you our new patient tracker that the front office staff can use to understand the location and status of each patient they'll see that day. These shifts on the patient tracker happen automatically, which allow for a quick, accurate view of how the office is flowing. This is the new patient tracker. On the day of her appointment, Julie can check in multiple ways. She can do so from the link on her mobile phone, she can scan a QR code in the office, or she can even interact with a tablet that we'll place at the front desk. In the future, we can imagine integrating financial information so that Julie is able to pay her copay through the coming Oracle Health Payments application. And as soon as Julie is checked in, her information automatically shows up on the patient tracker. Now we're ready for Julie's in-person visit with Dr. Feinberg, and after checking in and arriving, the nurse takes her into an exam room and checks her vitals. Dr. Feinberg is finishing up a previous appointment before moving to Julie's room. He's going to use the new Oracle Clinical Digital Assistant for his pre-visit activities. Instead of asking Julie about her medical history or why she's here, he will review her chart using AI and voice technologies. The system uses biometrics to authenticate Dr. Feinberg, which is integrated with the EHR self-sign-on. This allows him to get up to speed quickly, even while walking from one exam room to the next. So let's listen as Dr. Feinberg leaves one patient room on his way to the next appointment, which is Julie's. He'll use various voice commands to find the most relevant information.
Hey, Oracle, show me my next 3 appointments.
Here are your next 3 appointments. To open the patient summary, say the number or patient name.
Open Julie Smith.
Here's the summary for Julie Smith.
Read it out to me.
Julie Smith is a 41-year-old female who was last seen on Friday, September 8th at 4:30 p.m. who has active problems of benign essential hypertension, hypercholesterolemia, and type 2 diabetes mellitus.
Show HCC.
Here's the list of eligible HCCs.
Add HCC to the problem list. Show me my last note.
Here's your last note for Julie Smith. You can ask me to summarize the note or read a section.
Show me her vitals.
Here are their vitals. You can say a name to see the history.
Blood pressure.
Here are the vitals for blood pressure.
Close.
So what we just heard and saw was Dr. Feinberg using voice commands to pull up the current and past information about his patient, including the vitals that the nurse just collected. We've also embedded AI to generate a succinct patient narrative, pulling details from various parts of the chart. Dr. Feinberg was able to familiarize himself with the patient chart more quickly than having to search for patient notes or results or medications. Notice there were 0 clicks in the entire interaction, not even to sign on because his voice is what authenticated him into the system. Additionally, the system used data from our population health platform in a couple ways. It notified Dr. Feinberg that Julie qualifies for a registry. The system read through Julie's chart and brought together all types of data to determine she may qualify for a certain HCC code. This will enable providers to add patients to groups based on diagnoses or conditions to better manage their care. It also identified Julie as at risk for food insecurity. This type of information is crucial to ensuring she has the resources she needs, like healthy food, to manage her health. Dr. Feinberg is now ready to see Julie for her in-person visit. After knocking, he enters the room where Julie is waiting. At her initial visit, Julie gave permission to have her visits recorded. Now, at this follow-up appointment, Dr. Feinberg begins listener mode on our Oracle Clinical Digital Assistant.
Hey, Oracle, start recording. Hey, Julie, how are you feeling? How's the cough? How's everything going?
Dr. Feinberg follows up on Julie's pneumonia, diabetes, and diet. They also talk about how her kids are doing and what trips she's planned later this year. As you can see throughout the interaction, Dr. Feinberg is spending quality time with his patient, looking at and speaking directly to Julie. He's not buried in a computer looking for information. Additionally, our clinical digital assistant does more than capture the conversation in the background. It also participates in the interaction. So when reviewing Julie's labs, Dr. Feinberg noticed Julie's blood sugars have been running a little high. He'd like to go over this information with her.
Okay, Julie, let's take a look at your blood sugars because they've been trending a little high. Hey, Oracle, can you show me Julie's last 3 hemoglobin A1Cs?
Dr. Feinberg quickly has the information he needs to show Julie how her values are trending without guessing or assuming. He has the data right at his fingertips on his mobile device when he needs it. We'll now jump back into the conversation to hear Dr. Feinberg sum up Julie's visit.
All right, Julie, I'm glad that the pneumonia is resolving, but the blood sugars have been increasing, so there's a few things I want to do. I'd like to refer you to our dietitian to get you enrolled in our food prescription program, and we're going to have to increase the metformin, as we discussed. I'd like you to come back in about 3 months and get a hemoglobin A1C before that visit, and we'll set all that up for you. Hey, Oracle, stop recording.
During that visit, Dr. Feinberg and Julie had a full conversation. While they were talking, the clinical digital assistant was running in the background. It pulled out the clinically relevant information and generated a draft note for the doctor with proposed actions to review and sign. As you can see on the screen, the actions are now displayed for Dr. Feinberg to review, edit, and sign.
Hey, Oracle, order metformin 850 milligrams, 1 PO/BID.
Updating the current order to metformin 850 milligrams. You can change this order or sign it.
Dispense 93 refills.
I've changed the dispense to 90 and refills to 3.
Sign it.
The order for metformin is signed.
Review generated note.
Here's the draft note for Julie Smith.
Sign it.
The note for Julie Smith is signed.
Send Julie an email in 1 week asking how she's doing and whether she's got enrolled in the food prescription program.
Your reminder has been set to show up on Monday, September 25th at 9 a.m.
Dr. Feinberg has completed his visit with Julie. Oracle Clinical Digital Assistant has lessened his interaction with the EHR, saving in time and lowering his cognitive burden. Not only was each stage of the journey improved, but all pieces of the system are connected. As soon as Dr. Feinberg signs the note, Julie moves from in-room to checked out back in the patient tracker at the front desk. Julie can go to the checkout desk or simply leave the clinic. She'll receive a link on her mobile phone to complete checkout on her own, where she can download patient education or complete any necessary payments.
Hey, Mike, this is amazing. I mean, to be able to sit and talk with a patient, not touch the computer at all, like you almost didn't believe this would be possible in our lifetime. The demo I saw our team do on nursing, the nurse comes in the room, the patient has an infiltrated IV, just talk to the patient, change it, replace the IV, the note gets written with phlebitis. I mean, this is amazing.
Well, you know, this is, we spoke about this last year in Kansas City, David, about bringing together all the Cerner IP and the Oracle technology and really thinking about how do we improve outcomes for both patients and providers? And I hope that gave everybody a little bit of a glimpse. I noticed you didn't have to put your pajamas on to do any of that.
Exactly,
You were able to get it all done there. And I do want to apologize. I told you no clicks, but I noticed you had to turn the power on.
Oh, there you go,
so
there you go.
You did have one click, so. Anyway. So, look, that's what it looks like. You didn't see Citrix. You didn't see Windows UIs. You didn't see lags. You didn't see latency. What you saw is stateless, modern web technology. Here's the even better news. All of that is going to work with what you have today. All of your data today, everything that works today with Millennium, with PowerWorks, with CommunityWorks. You don't have to migrate any of the data. You don't have to change systems. We're going to deliver this to you in batches incrementally so that we can make your lives better. And I want to thank all of you for your partnership. We're doing a lot of really, we think, powerful work to change the industry. We're making tremendous investments in all of this, and we hope that it's helpful to you. But what's not lost on it is that, not lost on us, is that the most important work in the world is being done by all of you. And that's keeping people well and caring for them when they're not well. And it's a very humbling and amazing experience to partner with all of you on that journey. We hope we can help you do a better job of that by providing the best technology in the world. That's our commitment to you, and that's the mission that we're on. Thank you very much for being here, and enjoy the rest of the show.